think. All right. Hi, everybody. I am Sarah Black. I'm FIGT Social Media Manager. I'm really excited to be here spending a couple of minutes with one of our FIGT 2020 keynote speakers. Very excited to hear what this is going to bring to our audience and to our stage. I am happy to introduce Danau Tanu. And maybe you would tell us a little bit about your background and share some of your research interests for people at home who maybe aren't familiar with your work.
Thanks, Sarah. It's really great to be here. It's a great honor to be invited to do this. So myself, I self-identify as a third culture kid. My parents, my mother is Japanese and my father is Indonesian, but of Chinese descent. So he was born and raised in Indonesia. And they met in Singapore, and I went to Canada where I was born. So legally speaking, I'm Canadian, but when I was 3, we left Canada and went to Indonesia. But in Indonesia, I went to an international school and, an Americanized international school. And then from there, I did spend 1 year of primary school in Japan, and then came back to Indonesia and then a year in Singapore and then moved around about, 10 different times, I think, after that. So that's a bit of my background. And because of all that moving, I ended up doing my PhD on third culture kids. And yeah, and it actually took 3 years to decide on my topic, because at first I was like, education, maybe, comparative education, blah, 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 but nothing felt right until in the 3rd year, a professor said to me, well, what makes you angry? And immediately I thought, question where you come from. And she said, well, why don't you do your PhD on that? And I thought, is that how you decide on a PhD topic? It seems a bit flippant. And she's like, yeah, because, if you're angry about something, you'll have that drive to keep you going for 5 years, because it's not easy to, keep that going. And I'm like, okay. And it was just the previous year that I had heard my friend from the international school in Singapore mentioned that, did you know that we're all third culture kids? And I'm like, what's that? And she explained it to me. But so before I started my PhD, I was like, whatever, nobody's going to label me. No, I don't know about this thing. But because I wanted to do a PhD on it, I thought, I better go read it about this. Right. And that's when I came across tckid.com, which Bryce Royer set up in 2007. And I came across it in 2008 when I started my PhD. And then through Bryce, it was like, wow, everybody understands my experience. But it was especially, he sent out an email with this thing called the TCK mini course on unresolved grief that Ruth had written, Ruth Van Raken. And it's when I read that I just broke down and cried. And I thought, wow. And it spoke to my experience, especially when I was in Japan, because that was a hard year coming to Japan when I was about 11, I think.
Wow.
Just that adolescent years.
Yeah.
And although Ruth's experience is completely different from mine in a way, because she was in Nigeria and she's American in Nigeria, but there was something that she said about her boarding school experience that I could relate to. And that's sort of what got me into this TCK world. And I've been trying to, thought I've finished my PhD, I've done that, gotten that out of my system, but I feel like I'm sort of stuck in a good way.
And well, for everybody else in the TCK world, it is a very good thing that you are.
Yeah.
And I believe you published your first book in 2018. You share a little bit about that?
So that's the book. It's called Growing Up in Transit, The Politics of Belonging at an International School. So the reason I started, so the book is based on my PhD. It's research-based and I'm an anthropologist. So I was reading all the book, the TCK Bible that the book that we call TCK Bible written by Ruth. And I read, I think the 1st or 2nd edition. And I could relate to a lot of it, the restlessness, rootlessness. But as I was reading it, I felt like my experience as an Asian, somebody who looks Asian, whose culture, at home, I don't speak English. We speak Indonesian and Japanese and Chinese. Going to an international school where the teachers were mostly from Anglophone countries. I felt was a very different experience from, say, an American kid going overseas and going to an international school. And I felt that experience wasn't covered in the book. And so then my PhD became about that.
Amazing.
Because for me, it felt like being a migrant in the international school. And so the book it focuses on the cultural dynamics within the international schools, because it's often assumed that, you know, international schools is where TCKs all belong and feel like they're a part of it. And that's true to a large extent. When I do go back to my school, it's like, you know, if I can relate to it, but there's also, I think there are also a lot of students who struggle to sort of participate in that, the school culture, so to speak, the dominant school culture. And so it's sort of trying to bring nuance to what it means to be international at the school. And so I focus a lot on the experiences of the Asian students at the school, particularly those who don't speak English, and what it's like to be at the school. And even those who are fluent in English, you know, when they go home, it's, you know, Korea or Japan or China or a mix like myself. And then they go to school and they have to act American or westernized, at least, maybe not American, but, you know, quite westernized, speak English. And so that's sort of what I talk about in my research, and what that means to our identities, because I struggled with a sense of, in a way, you know how in the US everyone says, you know, everyone wants to become blonde or blue-eyed, etc. So that as an Asian going to an international school, it's sort of like that, but not the same. But there's a sense that I'm in Asia, I'm going to school in Asia, but I graduated from high school not having any knowledge of Asian history.
Wow.
But being able to write, you know, I could write essays off the top of my head about Western European history. And so I ended up going to university in Canada, and I took Asian studies, and I was like, this is weird. There's something not quite right here. And I'm sure the IB program, et cetera, has changed since then. But there's still a lot of nuances where, you know, when your language at home, your culture at home and your school is different. And so,
fascinating. I'm hopefully we'll see that in the conference bookshop for anybody who's in Bangkok and wants to pick up a copy and maybe even get it signed. We are super excited to have you. You've been involved in FIGT for a while. I think you are co-chair of the research network. That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah, which is amazing. Why do you think conferences like this matter, or what do you feel is their usefulness to people who might be at home thinking, is that for me?
Well, I often, like, when FIGT is coming up on my Facebook, etc., I post, you know, this is the conference for third culture kids, and anyone working for third culture kids. And while it's an interesting conference, I'm used to going to academic conferences where it's all about research, and this isn't, you know, there's research, but it's mixed with all sorts of things. But for me, as a TCK who has written a book about TCKs, the first time I went to the conference was in 2014, and I wanted to promote my book. And by then I had been working on it, or promote my research. The book hadn't come out by then. But by then I was, you know, I'd been spending 5 years every single day thinking, talking, writing about third culture kids. I thought, I'm sick of this. I want to get out of this, but I need to promote my research because I've worked on it for 5 years. And so I went to the conference with this, you know, in this mindset with, you know, I'm here to promote my research. But I went, and the first night I felt teary, and I thought, maybe I'm just really jet lagged. The second day I heard Ruth speak, and again I felt teary, and I thought, I must be really, really tired. And then that evening, I was just talking to a few people, and I started crying, and then one of the girls was like, is this your first time? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I know what that feels like. And I don't know what it is, but it's just, you know, everyone gets you. And it's also a conference where I think a lot of the participants have a very high level of empathy. And that really speaks to me personally. But also in terms of professionally, it is where people from all different sort of professions come together. And so for me, it's a really good place to advertise my research. Yeah, so I'm all for it.
Yeah, awesome. I think we've all, at some point, all of us who've been to an FIGT conference have had that, particularly when Ruth Van Recken has spoken. We've all had that experience of suddenly realize you're in a room with everybody who understands what you're experiencing.
And it's a very strange feeling because
strange, isn't it?
you don't feel it anywhere else, and it's like, this is really weird.
Yeah,
but in a good way.
And I know a lot of people that I know who've been talk about like sense of family or sense of belonging, or kind of a deep kind of like when they get into that room. Even if it's people that you don't know that you're in the room with, you know that they understand your experience in a way that sometimes other people don't. So I'm hoping there's no tears this year. Or at least if they're good tears, if they're happy tears.
Yeah, they're always happy tears.
Good. Excellent. Very, very excited to see you in Bangkok. Thank you for being one of our keynotes, and stay tuned in the next couple of weeks for more on the title of what you're going to speak about and a little bit more information on that. But yeah, if you're watching this at home, there's still time to register to come to Bangkok and join both of us, and we'll both be there, and we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you. Hope to see everyone there too.